afternoon and welcome to Across the Fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. It's our first Bird Notes of 2024, which means Audubon Vermont conservation biologist Mark LaBarr is here to talk birds and travel. I'm so excited. Mark, we did a couple of these a little bit in advance, so it's been a while since we've spoken.
It has, Jolie, yeah.
But last time we talked, you were headed south. Were you following the birds?
I was indeed. As we know, many of our birds move south during the winter, migrate south. And so for vacation, I tend to go with them and volunteer on various different projects that I can get on board with.
And we'll get into this in a minute, but it sounds like quite a busy vacation for vacation.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you get there and you're working. And, I'm not a sit on the beach kind of guy, so we get out there. And most of it is bird banding, where we're catching birds, putting bands on their legs. And I've done that for years, so it's a skill that I can apply to as a volunteer to these programs.
Sure, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
That's right.
All right, well, before we get too much into what you were talking about with bird banding, let's talk about where you went. Give us a geology lesson.
So I went to Belize. So this is a picture of Central America, and Belize is a small country just south of the Yucatan Peninsula, right there in the middle of the screen. And I've been going to Belize now for a number of years. It is the wintering grounds for many of our neotropical migrants, of the birds that breed here and fly south. And in this particular instance, I was in the northwest corner of the state. See all that green stuff up there? That's a lot of that is the Rio Bravo Conservation District, which is run by the Program for Belize. And they're working with Mass Audubon to basically look at how this conservation area and some of the management techniques are impacting the birds. And so bird banding plays into that.
All right, and you were out in Belize. I don't know about our viewers at home, but I certainly haven't been before. Tell me what the forest is like there.
So it's jungle. In that part of the country, you are out in, it's not primary forest. There has been activity in cutting before, but it's thick, it's dense, a lot of mosquitoes. When we were walking back into our sites, you're walking along paths that have been cut with a machete in order to get back in there that were prepared for you. And so, in some sites we had jaguar prints that were very close to that. So it's out there. Belize is a little bit different along the coast. It's very Caribbean, but back where we were, it's, Central American jungle.
All right, and you weren't working out there alone,
no,
which is probably good considering the jaguars.
I had, they're pretty human shy, so they know we're there. But I had the privilege of working again with Mike and Amir. They're two young Belizean guys that work and band birds, and I worked with them last spring and helped train them at a place called the Tropical Research, Environmental, and Education Association. So they got hired onto this project, and they were my banding partners for this whole trip. All
right, and of course you were down there to band birds. Tell me what kind of birds you were looking for.
So, one of the things that we're looking for is how these neotropical migrants, these birds that breed up here and winter down there, work. So some of the birds I came across are really familiar. The gray catbird, one of my favorites, sings outside my window in the summertime all the time, breeds right there at the Audubon Center. This is a common bird that we caught down there. This is where they spend their winter months. Another one we see at the center and is pretty common here in Vermont, these are Vermont birds, is the ovenbird, kind of a denizens of our hardwood forests here. So this is a bird that, just like the catbird, gets out of Vermont this time of year and moves back down south. And then another species, which there were a lot of around, magnolia warblers that we saw, both at the field station and back in the jungle, in the forest. These are a bird that we tend to find in the more northern forests of Vermont and stuff like that. So again, when we look at full life cycle conservation, we not only want to protect birds up here, but we want to see how we can help them down on their wintering grounds as well.
All right, it gives a whole new meaning to snowbirds.
Yes, exactly, yes.
And so what other birds did you see while you were down there?
So a couple more that don't quite make it to Vermont, although with climate change going the way it is, one never knows. This is a bird, the hooded warbler, which we have seen in Vermont off and on over the years. It pops up in different places, but tends to breed a little further south in the U.S. And another good one, these are birds I don't normally see up here, the worm-eating warbler. Again, a bird of the southeastern U.S., and who knows, one that we may find here. So birds across the eastern coast use Belize in places further south, Central America and South America, in order to pass their winter months.
So you said the hooded warbler we're seeing further north a little more often, is that right?
Yeah, so it pops up here and there. Hooded warblers were seen at Japragues Park a number of years ago, which is in Heinsberg, and they kept coming back there. Birders are out there, and so they see them. So we're right on their edge, so I don't doubt that we'll be seeing more of them.
And a specific bird you were down there looking for was the thrush?
Yeah, the wood thrush. So this was kind of the focal bird of the project. Wood thrushes are a very common bird here in the Northeast, but their populations are declining. And so there's an effort both on their wintering grounds and their breeding grounds to just learn more about them and how they use the habitat, what habitats they like to use. So not only do we ban these birds, but we put on what's called a nano tag. This is a small device that emits a signal that can be picked up all across the eastern U.S. and to some extent in the Caribbean and Central and South America are towers set up, kind of like cell towers. And as this bird flies by, that little device sends out a signal and sends it to these towers, and we can pick up their movement. In Belize, when we're down there, both Amir and Mike were tracking these birds using handheld antennas, and they would follow them around, and when they found them, they would do a vegetation analysis to give us a better idea of the structure of the forest that these birds are using. So really exciting. We'll be putting nano tags on birds here in Vermont and across the Northeast this summer. But hopefully some of these tags will be picked up in the spring as these birds move north, and we'll see where some of these wood thrushes end up.
All right, and you mentioned the nano tags. How big are those? Does it impact their flying at all?
No, the way that nano tags work is there's different sizes of backpacks and different sizes of attachment techniques, and they're all kept up under a certain weight that's dictated by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the banding lab. So it's all highly permitted and everything like that. And they're attached with a harness so that antenna kind of stays out of their way, and we can keep an eye on them.
Nice, yeah, nanotech on the move, maybe.
Yeah, well, that's what'll happen this spring. As long as those continue to emit as they begin to move north, they'll be picked up by these other towers, and we'll be able to see what migration paths they use.
All right, and all the way down to Belize, how long were you there?
So I was there about 2 weeks, thereabouts. I'm hoping to get back down again in March, working at the Toucan Ridge Environmental and Education Association. And hopefully working with these two guys. These, Amir and Mike, when you spend your days getting eaten by mosquitoes and handling small birds, you get to know folks pretty well. So hopefully I'll be working with them again in the spring as Trees kind of does their internship program and runs their banding station.
All right, and you were down there looking for thrush and various birds from Vermont, but are there any you checked off your bucket list you've been wanting to see? Oh,
we caught some good Belizean birds, but that's going to be for another program. I saved those up. We did come across some great birds were down there that are local birds that we don't see here. And so maybe next month I'll have a hit parade of some of the birds that I caught down there while I was down there.
Something for all of us to look forward to. Seeing a little.
Yes.
And now you're back in Vermont and you're back to the office. How are things at the Audubon Center?
Yeah, so it's winter. It's kind of slow. It's grant period, report writing. We're getting ready for this nanotag project that we'll do this summer. So, we're kind of in a transition zone. Sugaring's on the horizon. We'll be doing that, but it'll be a little bit before, many of these small songbirds begin heading back north and showing up at the Audubon. We did just complete the midwinter bald eagle survey. I don't have the results for that, so there is some activity. And the Great Backyard Bird Count is coming up in February as well, so folks can participate in that. A community science project where folks can record the birds that they see at their feeders or in their backyard or at a local park, and then put that online so that researchers can use that information in helping us with bird conservation.
All right, a lot of things coming up to look forward to.
Yes, there is, yes.
So you mentioned you're tracking a lot of birds coming up. You don't have to give me any specifics, but like about how many tags do you usually do while you're down in Belize?
So we put out, when we were there were about 10 tags that had been put out total. And Amir and Mike will be going back down in January and February, and they'll be putting more on. So I think somewhere between 20 and 30 tags will be put on by these guys. And you know, these, I worked with them last spring. It's great to work with young banders. We had the internship here at Audubon when we run a banding station. So it's just great. I spend a lot of time just sitting there looking and watching what they do and keeping an eye on things. And it's just great to be able to hand that skill on to the next generation of young folks to keep it going.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, before we wrap up, before you can tag a bird, you have to catch it. What's the trick?
So we use what are called mist nets. They're very fine nets that we set up in the woods, and birds in their normal course of moving around fly into these nets. We check them every 20 minutes, half hour, and recover the birds and then bring them back to the banding station. Put a little metal band on them with a unique number, and that way if we catch that bird again, we'll know who it is. So at the Audubon, for instance, when we band in the summertime, we often catch catbirds and veeries and ovenbirds that I've banned in previous years there at Green Mountain. They've flown all the way to their wintering areas, and then we know they come back to the same place to breed in the summertime. So banding helps us a lot with understanding bird movements and site fidelity and how long birds live.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, Mark. We've got a lot to look forward to coming up for you the rest of the year.
Okay, yeah, looking forward to it.
All right, and if you have any bird-related questions, you can pass it along to Mark at the address on your screen, or you can drop Mark an email. His address is mlabarr@audubon.org. Send Mark your questions and pictures, and he'll find the answers for you, or you might even be featured on the upcoming edition of Bird Notes. That wraps up our program for today. From all the crews behind the scenes at WCAX, I'm Jolie Whitney. Have a good one.